It is the being that clarifies what is important and what is not, such that you can bring a presence and a mindfulness to the doing. By placing your attention on this thing that aligns with your values, you know that that doing is worthy of the being that you're bringing to it. We're brought to you today by Roka. Unlock 20% off your order with the code RICHROLL at roka.com. Check. See if this mic works. It's been since May since we've done one of these, Adam. We're back after an extended hiatus, interrupted with a few mini docs and monologues, but the people have spoken, Adam, and here we are back with Roll On, hotly anticipated for the hardcore fans.
Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's good to see you. We're a little rusty, unsure, on unsure footing about what we're going to talk about today, but I'm excited. I can feel the anticipation in the air.
I feel it.
As always, we're going to shoot some shit, maybe answer a couple listener questions, but we do have a special announcement we're going to make, and we have a special guest who begrudgingly is going to be joining us after the break. And his name is Chris Evans, not Captain America. I would say Captain UK. He is the broadcasting legend himself, host of the Chris Evans Breakfast Show on Virgin Radio every morning, broadcasting from London. He's been a huge supporter of this show. He's on vacation here in Los Angeles, and if we're doing Roll On, we got to bring the guy on.
Oh
right?
yeah.
So
we're forcing him out of
exactly.
his vacation
he's
hibernation.
Here. He wanted to watch, but we're not going to allow that. So he's going to be coming on after the break. In the meantime, our voicemail again is 805-421-0057. If you'd like your question answered on air, you can leave it there for a future Roll On episode, whenever that's going to happen.
I love it.
Yeah, man. So let's do the check-in.
You know what? It's good to be here. I've been missing you. I miss being here. I was at the beach not too long ago with the family. I'm at the beach with the family a lot. And I saw the way our water fountains are being treated. And I wanted to unpack the water fountain situation. So this woman comes along with her dog. The dog is thirsty. It's hot out. And she brings it right to the water fountain and turns on the water. It's not the first time I've seen this in Santa Monica. Turns on the water fountain. The dog hops up and starts lapping out of the water fountain. And so I go into this immediate, I have one of those go into my brain, and I'm thinking, this is like a David Goggins moment where even the dogs in Santa Monica don't have the dog in them. And I texted him this afterwards. Used to be when we were kids, we would those things were oases. We would play really hard. We'd go over there. We'd drink out of them. Some kids would lick on them. We'd still then drink after them. It wouldn't even matter to us. And now everyone has the little bottle and has their perfect water. And the dogs even won't drink out of the gutter. The dogs used to be happy with the gutter water.
What is happening to our society? You sent that to Goggins?
I did.
What did he say?
He said, "Oh man, it's all fucked up. That's why I'm out here smoke jumping."
So basically what you're saying is this is the death of civilization in an anecdote, right?
Yes.
In a nutshell, the dog, refusing to drink water as given.
Right. The gutter water is not good enough for the dog. The water fountain water is not good enough for the kids. I'm drinking fucking alkaline water. What is alkaline water?
What are we doing here?
Do
you know that at Erewhon, there is a bottled water that costs $30? It's 24 ounces or something like that. And it's got it's this is your wellness elixir or something. I don't know what they do to this water. I hope it's something fucking extraordinary, but
it's blessed by Shaolin monks.
But it's almost that's the allure, right? We have to buy the $30 water.
Yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
That's what that's it. That's what I wanted to
forget
talk
AI,
about.
forget, everything else.
It's that's where we're at. So I think that's the canary in the coal mine. We're going to get back into that in a second, but I wanted to also tell you a story. A helicopter was talking to me the other day. Mm-hmm. Did you see my post?
When this was happening, were you crawling around on the carpet looking for small little white particles to smoke or stick up your nose?
No.
With the blinds shut?
No, that does sound
some
fun.
Kind of, yeah, this is I've heard this before. It generally is in the closed rooms of the secret society.
Yes, no.
After 4 days of no sleep and lots of substances.
Exactly. So that's why though, from those stories, it's never a good thing when the helicopters start talking to you.
Yeah.
Never awesome. So
I'm thinking Goodfellas right now.
Right, exactly. You're like looking for helicopters. So where I swim sometimes at Will Rogers, they do maneuvers. Like sometimes it's LAPD, sometimes it's Coast Guard, sometimes it's the sheriff's chopper. That you often see. It's like a turnaround spot for helicopters. But this time, I'm swimming, doing my normal swim. I get to almost my turnaround, and this LAPD copper does like 3 loops, and then all of a sudden I hear, swimmer, there are 5 or 6 sharks 20 yards out from you. And I look up at this helicopter that's hovering and looking at me, and I'm like, okay. And then I don't do anything. Instead I turn behind me as if and I have my mask on. I turn behind me and I'm like, all right, what do I do now? Do I swim in? Like, this guy's like worried about me. Like, I don't like it when people worry about me. I just, that, it makes me uncomfortable. And so then he says it again, swimmer, there's 5 or 6 sharks. And I say, okay. So I decide to do it. I'm pretty far out. So
Are you around like at the point?
No, I'm on my way. So I started a little bit further south on the coast. I'm like right at Bel Air Bay Club. So usually I'll swim
down in Santa Monica.
Either to Bel Air Bay and back to Temescal, or I'll swim all the way to the staircase at the Sunset Surf Break, or maybe to the point. And so this time it was kind of just to Bel Air Bay. And so I swim back. I'm pretty far out. So I do like a kind of diagonal swim. And I'm thinking about just going in, because it's like, even though I'm the guy that says sharks aren't scary, it's kind of weird to get a helicopter.
Do you really believe that?
It's kind of weird thing to do and not listen.
Yeah.
So I swim in, but then I keep swimming down. Like, as soon as it sees me swim close enough to the wave, it feels like, okay, I'm fine. I feel like, okay, the sharks didn't follow me. I can go. And I just swam back to my spot. But I thought that was strange.
I was hoping he was going to drop a line or a ladder and you were going to grab onto it, and then he was going to elevate you out and you take you to the shore safely.
Yeah, help.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was weird. That happened.
Well, this just proves your thesis.
It does.
You're always saying the sharks are there all the time. It's just now we see them more.
Well, yeah, well, you know who my first call was after that whole thing.
The Malibu artist.
Right. So I call him, and he says, dude, I was there yesterday. And I think I saw those five or 6 sharks. But he says, when there are 5 or 6 that you can see, there's always 5 or 6 you can't see. But he told me, he gave me the down low, which is they're about 5 to 7 feet. So 6-footers. They're all they're all just getting pupped. So it's pupping season for great whites. We've always thought it was a nursery out there. And now this confirms. And he says they're going to be around for like 18 months.
But that also doesn't sound great. If there's a lot of babies around, doesn't that heighten the danger?
Well,
situation
they're eating rays. They're not like even eating marine mammals.
Yeah, but if you get anywhere near any of the pups, doesn't that alert?
It's not the same.
Shark?
Once they're out, they're out. It's not the same.
Yeah, fuck them once they're born.
That's
You're
it.
on
It's
your
one
own.
of those. It's one of those drop
We might
and
eat
run.
you.
It's a drop and run.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, those are 2 good stories.
Yes, that's where I start.
Yeah,
that's where I start.
there's been a turn journalistically, has there not?
There's been a turn. Yeah. Then the New York Times Sports shut down its sport. The New York Times has shut down its sports desk. So New York Times Sports, as it were, I guess is not going to exist here in the next several weeks.
No one saw that coming, did they?
Nobody's
pretty crazy.
Nobody saw it coming, because literally the people that worked at the sports desk weren't told until the story broke. And so we all found out at the same time. I mean, I'm not even putting myself, because I don't work full time for them. So like, I found out when the general public found out, but so did the people that were staffing the sports desk. And I think there's an explanation for that I'm not privy to, but I would imagine it's like, you don't want rumor and all that's getting around. It's better to be out front and, whatever happens. There's there's no nice way to do something like that. So to me, it's like, it's just the way they chose, and that's the way it is. But it did, I was saddened by it, and beyond personal opportunity, I was saddened by it because it was such a big deal to start writing for the New York Times Sports. It all started for me in Vertical Blue 2013, my first assignment for them. Nick Mavoli dies. And basically, like, that assignment changed everything about my career and my life, really, because it led to One Breath, which led to meeting you, which also led to reconnecting with my wife, April. And so then there's Zuma, and like the Goggins thing, and Can't Hurt Me wouldn't exist without One Breath, without going to that thing. So the New York Times Sports is so now like, beyond just being proud to be able to work with some amazing editors, great photographers, good people, and great at what they do. And to tell the story of these athletes and freedivers, open water swimmers, mountaineers, big wave surfers, triathletes, thanks to you. And I predicted in the New York Times Sports that Christian Blumenfeld would win the Tokyo Gold and then also the Ironman.
Yeah.
So the fact that we predicted that, that's a culmination of so many things in the New York Times. That's because of that first assignment. And so it was it's been important to me. So I'm bummed by it. John Branch, I was able to work with him on my first A1 story for the New York Times. And he's been on Twitter talking about his feelings about it. I think I'll do something on Threads or Twitter or X, whatever the fuck it's called now. I'll do a retrospective and kind of unpack some of the stories because, it's over 35 stories now I've done for them over the years. And I hope to stay until, I've got other editors there. So hopefully I'll be able to work with the Times again. It's sad for endurance and adventure sports because really Washington Post does some of that. But the New York Times, I think, with Outside Magazine, were the top for those kinds of stories.
Sure. I mean, they really invested in those longer stories. Yeah. And then the art direction that they kind of infuse them with to create these experiences with video and imagery, was really compelling. Like the stuff that you did with Colin O'Brady when he was going across Antarctica. I mean, nobody else does that.
No.
Right? And so that's gone, which sucks. It's not about daily box scores as much as it is the more journalistic kind of stories that are human interest as much as they are sports. I mean, they kind of transcend the sports page. So I was wondering whether those kinds of stories could still find a home at the New York Times, just not under the sports page, because they are as much sort of, life and style stories as they are sports stories.
It's a very good question. I don't know exactly the answer to that yet, because you're right. The idea was this sports desk isn't, I guess, doing the job financially, and we bought the Athletic.
And so
the
now
story is
the Athletic is taking over all of that.
They bought the Athletic for $500+ million. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as they bought it, I was worried already for my friends at the sports desk, because I didn't know how that would all work. But then it seemed to be going along as normal. And then obviously one day it isn't. And I'm not privy to those decisions. I'm not one of those writers that goes on Twitter and yells about my people who I work for. It's I'll never be that guy. So if you don't have the information, it's impossible for me to be critical about these decisions. To me, it's a decision that I think is a choice. And if it works out or not, they could always choose to go back. I was writing for Playboy pretty regularly when they decided not to do nudes anymore. And I knew one thing, that their last move was, we're doing nudes again. So, this kind of thing.
That's a pretty predictable move.
Right. So they could it's if I don't even know the math, but I'd imagine if you want to start up a sports desk, you could do it again pretty easily. So this isn't necessarily the end. But you're right. To me, the New York Times Sports was never about, although they've had great basketball writers, had great baseball writers, they have a great soccer writer, Rory Smith right now. He's fantastic. And they've had great tennis people. But you're right. The sports section itself was kind of an expanded view of the sports world, which you don't get on the ESPN.
Right. You're not reading a story about free diving and looking at these amazing photos of these people because you're a sports nut.
Right.
It really is a curiosity that's born as much from just trying to understand something you've never seen before.
Right. And so I think we'll see. I mean, they say the sports business stories are now going to be folded in under business. So I hope so. I hope the adventure stuff can find a way at home under travel, maybe, or under just the global desk. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to try to find out.
Yeah. And what happens to friend of the pod, Matt Futterman?
He's cranking away. He's
still there.
Still fire. The sports desk still seems to be functioning right now. They say this transition is going to be over at some point this month or next month, they say, or they've said this is public stuff. So no one's telling me anything privately, but it sounds like by the fall, whatever the new thing is going to be locked in place. For you as a consumer, it's still going to say sports on your New York Times app. It's just going to be done by the Athletic staff.
Yeah. And then I guess more broadly, what does that augur in terms of the media landscape. Like, oh, the New York
Right.
Times like got rid of their sports and no big deal. Well, they had the Athletic, so it really is just a shuffling of the deck, I suppose.
It is, but I don't think the
is it-
Athletic covers these.
is it
these
sort
cool
of like,
sports.
Elon comes in, buys Twitter, like, fires like, a massive number of the employees, and somehow the app still seems to work. I
Right.
mean, you can argue about how well it works, but
Right.
then all the other CEOs are like, maybe I can cut my workforce back as well. Like, is there some of that happening as a result of that announcement with other journalistic outlets?
They say Bezos is taking an increased interest in the Washington Post, so that's never good when the money guy starts showing up, right? Right? Like, I don't know. I mean, journalism has been fraught for a long time. This is a reminder that anything can happen at any time. No one would have ever predicted this, I don't think. Even after they bought The Athletic, it seemed to be a parallel business, and it didn't seem to be part of the same thing. I guess my concern is, like you've already said, the endurance and adventure sports. Like, will they have a home? Because The Athletic is more kind of an ESPN, similar than ESPN. Their focus is on these very mainstream sports, and so there's not really a lot of coverage of these.
Yeah, there's not a receptivity to the kind of stories that you do.
It doesn't seem to be.
Yes.
And I wouldn't even know who like, the other thing about this business is you have to know who to approach, right? Like, I don't know anyone in the athletic side of things.
Who's your guy?
I don't know
have an
yet.
inside guy. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
These stories find a way, right?
Yeah,
like,
yes.
free diving will not die. As a matter of fact, it found its way all the way to Netflix.
It did.
And your star is on the rise, my friend, because you made your Netflix debut in a smash hit.
It's you know what?
Yeah.
The Deepest Breath. It's cranking. It's been top 10 on Netflix for a couple of weeks. Yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
Yes, it's been great. I knew that the film had potential when they first were putting it together. Laura McGann, the director, and her producers at Ventureland approached me early on because they were looking at doing a story on Stephen Keenan and Alessia Zecchini. Alessia is a world record holder, Italian freediver. Stephen Keenan is the greatest safety diver in the history of the sport, with some amazing rescues under his belt, and has an Irish national record holder as well. So their story, I'd reported on kind of the crux of what happens. I'm not going to spoil it in The Deepest Breath for Outside once before. And then obviously they'd read One Breath. And so they approached me early on. And I was very encouraging, saying, I've always loved this story. I think there's a great potential for the story. I'm happy you're doing it. It was an Irish director doing it, which I also liked. But then, they asked me to come to Vertical Blue, but it just didn't work out. Like, I think it was Vertical Blue right after the pandemic. It was like hard for me to get there. And so I figured I wasn't going to be in it. Then they came kind of towards the end of production, and we did a shoot out here in LA.
But the important question is, how much do you think Roll-On has contributed to the success of The Deepest Breath? Because
definitely some.
Despite my best efforts to steer the conversation away from freediving week in and week out, this is the sport that refuses to go away.
It really is.
You just find a reason to bring it back, and now it's on Netflix, and you're playing a role in the ascension of this sport. And how many Skolnick heads we're logging into Netflix and upping up the algorithm there to push that into the top 10.
There's no question the Rich Roll Skolnick heads have had something to do with this. I've been hearing from them. And you know what? Like, it's cool to see. I think that the success of the movie is really that people in the mainstream are seeing the sport. Like you said, the images and the video you can get, especially now, is amazing. And in Vertical Blue, they started pioneering this camera that it's a remote operated vehicle that dive eye, and it goes all the way down the line. And so the fact that exists, it didn't exist when I was doing One Breath. We only were using sonar, and so you could see it if you dove down for the first 20 meters and then come back up, but you weren't seeing what's happening. The fact that you have that and you can see this footage, it's you really only like dive nerds like me that were watching that stuff on YouTube. It's out there. But now people are seeing it, and the way the sound design in the film is so great, it really like wraps you up. And
cinematically, it's quite beautiful.
I wouldn't be surprised if they get some Oscar noms.
Yeah, that would be cool, right?
Yeah.
Oscar-nominated Skolnick.
I might
appearing in an Oscar nominated. So here I'm looking at the outline, and you've got like 8 more points about freediving in here with a bunch of names, Eastern Bloc and Russian, Ukrainian names in here. We're not going to do this, Adam. We spent enough time on freediving today.
We're not going to do that.
Right?
We're not going to.
Yeah. Like we don't need to get into bifins and whatever. It's cool. Check out the show on Netflix. End of story.
End of story.
Right?
Let's put a button on this.
Okay.
Can I just say one thing? Alexei Molchanov, 2 more world records.
Like,
what? 133 meters, bro. 1 breath. 133 meters.
Cool. That is awesome, actually.
Awesome. It is
All
awesome.
right. I gave you that one.
All right.
Maybe I'll edit it out.
Snuck it in. Yeah, cut it out later.
Anything else you want to share?
I'm going to ask Chris Evans what he thinks about freediving.
Yeah, trust me. I'm sure he's got an opinion or two. All right.
Yeah. What about you, man? What's been going on? I know you've been working on that.
Sitting here waiting for you to ask about me, Adam, so I could share.
Do you sometimes, when you're sitting across from someone, just completely tune out and just plan what you're going to say next?
I do that, or I have done that. But that's also, when I start doing that, I know that things are going off the rails. It's not going to be a good podcast. Because if I can't pay attention, it's not good.
That's not you. That's not you.
I'm good, man. Life is good. I'm dealing with a little in between hair right now. You know, I had short hair. I'm decided to grow it out a little bit, and now I don't know what to do with it, and it just looks bad no matter what I do.
I think, and this is true.
Growing the beard out, getting a little more hirsute.
Well, when I first saw you, I said how great you looked.
I appreciate
I like
that.
this in between look.
Well, there's a power dynamic between us, though, right? I have to take that with a grain of salt.
You don't trust my opinions?
No, I do. Since we last did this, again, end of May, I mean, where to even begin? A lot of travel, a lot of family time.
Yeah.
I think the last time we did it was right before I went to Australia.
Yes.
So I went to Australia, did a couple podcasts, gave a speech, had some trips with the kids, recorded a ton of podcasts. We're finalizing Voicing Change Volume 3.
Oh, exciting.
So more on that soon, but that book is on the horizon. We have Sir Patrick Stewart coming in later this week. Really? Yeah.
That's great.
That's an exciting guest.
For sure.
Yeah, that'll be fun. We passed 1 million YouTube subscribers. So thank you, everyone who has subscribed to that channel. That's pretty exciting.
1 million is pretty good.
No, it's pretty cool. It's surreal. I mean, not that, I posted about this on Instagram. I try not to get caught up in that kind of stuff because it just, it tweaks with how you think about what you want to do on the show when you start thinking about numbers and audience and stuff like that. Right. But I think it's important to celebrate those landmarks. For sure. Also for all of our coworkers here and for the fans and the people that have been on this journey with us. It's a wild thing, man. That's a lot of people. It's hard. Your brain can't really wrap itself around that.
Well, the YouTube channel you only started intensively looking at YouTube not too long ago, actually, in terms of the life of the show, right?
A handful of years ago. Yeah. And we're still learning a lot. I would say the vast majority of the audience is audio only still, and we're learning as we go with YouTube. And I think there's a lot of growth opportunity there, and it's exciting. And I love the fact that we do it visually, and we have the studio, and we're executing at such a high level in terms of production value and trying to deliver something interesting on that platform. So anyway, it's a cool little thing to celebrate. So thank you, everybody, for that.
Super cool.
On the health front, I've had a lot of progress with my lower back. I know I've shared many times about being kind of hampered, so to speak, through this chronic lower back injury and pain that I've been dealing with for many, many years. But the last person on the Whistle Stop tour was a guy that I found up in Sonoma County who's really been helping me out. So I've been going up there like once a month. I've been up there for 3 visits where I stay for a couple days. This guy works on me, and I've had real progress. I'm not out of the woods yet, but I've had more mobility and flexibility and less pain than I've had since probably like 2017, which was the last time that I was truly like fit. So I'm not exactly back to training, but I can move my body in a way that I haven't been able to in a number of years. So I see a light at the end of the tunnel. I still have a long way to go to kind of completely liberate myself of this issue, but I'm pretty optimistic for the first time in a long time. And I think I'm going to be able to solve this short of surgery, which was my goal, to figure it out. And if I needed surgery, I'm happy to have surgery, but I wanted to explore everything else prior to that. And had kind of lost hope and had resigned myself to, getting cut open and having it dealt with that way. But I'm actually having real progress right now. So we'll see where that leads. But I'm back on the bike. I can swim. I got to keep it pretty chill. The running stuff is at a very low simmer at the moment, but everything else, like I'm able to, I feel like myself again.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
It's like you forget, like, this is who I am. And when I can't express myself that way, I don't feel myself.
Right.
But I really do feel like myself in a way that I'd almost forgotten. And that's pretty exciting and feels good.
It's exciting. And is this a PT guy, or is it a medical doctor?
He's a multidisciplinary. No, it's a long story. He has a lot of different modalities that he works with, but he has a very specific chiropractic technique that is very painful, where he cracks my back in a certain way that makes me feel like he's going to paralyze me, but has really loosened things up for me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been good.
Interesting.
Yeah, cool. That's really it. I don't have lots of funny stories about water fountains and sharks and stuff like that. I just come to the studio and I do my thing. Although
I think about my warm open for days in advance.
I can tell it's very scripted. A little state, I have notes, Adam. It felt a little spontaneous, but maybe a little bit too thought out beforehand.
But I used to come on here and just say, "I'm great. How are you?" And then I started getting heckled. Remember?
I know. Anyway, life is good. I'm very grateful to be able to do this thing and celebrate it with so many people. So I just wanted to recognize the audience for taking this journey with us. It's good to be back with you. I am headed to London in a couple weeks, which I'm very excited about. I want to share a little bit more about what that is all about. But I think this is a good time to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and bring Chris on.
Beautiful.
Awesome. We're brought to you today by Roka. Glasses are not something you normally think about as a piece of performance gear, which, when you think about it, is kind of insane because you can't perform at your best if you can't see. Well, the geniuses at Roka basically rebuilt eyewear from the ground up. No matter how active you are or how much you sweat, these things never slip or fall off your face. They're super durable, they look awesome, and they've got tons of super classy modern styles to choose from. I've been rocking Rokas for about 4 years at this point. I love them. I'm a big fan of the Hamilton style in gloss black. That's this frame right here, as well as clear, or I guess they call them vintage on the website. And if you want to try them out for yourself, you can do that right now and unlock 20% off your order with the code RICHROLL at roka.com. Or you can click the link in the description below. Okay, back to the show. All right, are we good?
No.
We're not good?
I'm not good.
Come on, Chris.
You look fantastic. Look at you. You're a star.
Over the moon to have you sit here and join us today. I have no idea what's going to happen. We have a whole outline. I have a feeling we're not going to get to any of it, but I'm just thrilled to sit across from you, to have you in the studio so you can share this experience with us. But also, before we even get into anything, like I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I owe you such a massive debt of gratitude. I just wanted to thank you publicly for all the support that you have given, that you continue to give to the podcast, to Roll On specifically. And, when I go to London, like the popularity of the show in the UK and in London specifically is due entirely to your promotion and advocacy. And, I can't thank you enough for the support that you've given us over the years. It really means a lot. And so it's an absolute thrill to have you here today.
Thank you so much for all that. However, that doesn't mean I'm not totally opposed to my own appearance on this program right now. I couldn't be more against what is currently happening on Roll On. As a super fan
deep down, you love it. You're happy to be here. I know you are.
I was thrilled to be invited out to come and watch you and meet the whole team, who I love, by the way. But there are a few cardinal sins that you commit from time to time on Roll On.
Yes.
The biggest cardinal sin is when you invite a third party on to the show. So I am now committing the cardinal sin. but I'm not committing it.
But I bear
it's
the
committing
responsibility.
Me. I don't know. It's not fair.
I'm forcing you. So I take responsibility for
people
that.
back in the UK say he's just saying that he loves beer. I am so against this appearance.
Aw.
That's the first thing. The second thing is when you mess around with the original. Actually, no, that's the third thing. The second thing is when you refer to via emails or text to me, oh, it's going to be an old school roll-on, right? Like Roland's been around forever, right? Roland, in audio entertainment, in our universe,
Yes.
this podcast has been around for about a minute, let alone roll-on. Yet you refer to roll-on as we may do an old school roll-on. Oh my God. You've been on the air for about a second, you two, okay? Get back in your boxes.
In the podcast world, actually, time moves very, very, very fast.
Yeah.
Very, very, very fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go with that.
Yeah.
And anyway, the third thing is to mess around with the format, and that is, I love roll-on.
I know.
You're
the roll-on #1 fan.
I couldn't be more thrilled to be invited out to Los Angeles to meet Adam and his friend Rich.
That's very kind of you.
You're welcome.
I want notes though. I like your notes. Like you've always been a big supporter of this version of the podcast. You have strong opinions about when we go astray, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And you're the fucking legend, dude. So when you say do this, don't do that, like I'm paying attention.
I hope to goodness I don't say to you to do this, don't do that, where this
or well, you say this
concerned.
works for me, this doesn't work for me.
Yeah, no, you have a certain wisdom. You're not just the average listener. You actually, you've made quite a name for yourself in this broadcasting business. So of course we're going to listen to everything you say. Everything.
Please don't do that. Please. the number 2 problem most people have in the world, is getting what they want, because the number 1 problem is that they have is they don't know what they want, right? And when you refer to, well, the feedback has been this, they don't know what they want. People listening to this, they just reverse engineer what they think they want, because then they have the agency over, they wanted it in the first place. They need what you give them, and then they interpret that as to what they want.
So you come from the heart and you express yourself authentically, and the people will come.
That's what happens. Yeah, and the guests will come. And your team, I heard the backstory of your team and how they came to be, and how Jason came, to relocated here, and Dan relocated here.
Yeah.
And they were all doing different things at different times. And Dan was a pastor.
Right.
And he was a whole different human being. And then he realized that he was losing his faith and that he wasn't living to his true nature. And that's why the road of life was bumpy. And then the more you align yourself to who you are, and Guru Singh talks about this all the time, then the more things start to happen, because you're sailing with the wind as opposed to rowing against the tide. And suddenly life gets a bit more fluid and fluent, and it's all more, and that's how it feels.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you share that from a place of wisdom and like learned, lived experience, because you're somebody, not, as a broadcaster, you've been doing this for a long time, but you've had massive success. You've, kind of come to terms with the emptiness of certain aspects of that. And the way that you live your life now is very different from how you were living it not that long ago.
Well, it's 67 days ago, I had my last drink. You've even stopped me drinking.
I know, that's fantastic.
67 days?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And my wife. And we stopped on a Saturday morning. Nobody stops drinking on a Saturday morning.
No.
You leave it till a Monday.
You wait till
big
after
Friday
Sunday
night,
lunch, right?
We had quite a big Friday.
It's Sunday lunch. You gotta have Sunday lunch, then you quit.
Yeah, or Saturday night.
Yeah.
But we did that thing where I told you I went to a meeting.
What was happening?
Well, nothing really. I mean, we just, why does anybody drink? Why does anybody consume anything from the outside in, to pursue pleasure? For various reasons at various differing times in one's life, and I told you I went to this meeting on the beach the other day, and this guy described it beautifully. He said, for a long time when I was drinking and I was using and I was abusing things and substances and people and having a great time, but without little substance, although all the substances, then you have all the fun. You can have all the fun. And then you have a lot of the fun and you have a few problems, and then you have more problems and a bit of fun, and then you just have the problems. That's one way of describing it. Another way of describing it, and there are thousands, as you know, would be you used to have a drink to take the edge off. Yeah. Well, I found now that we were having a drink and it was taking the shine off because our lives were shiny. And I suddenly felt like whatever was working before wasn't working now. And the next day, there was less of the good stuff. And there was more of the good stuff to begin with. It was more palpable. And why would you rough up your own diamond, as it were?
Yeah.
And I got up 67 days ago. And I said to Tash, I don't know this anymore. She said, I'm with you. And then we just stopped.
That's beautiful. So it's just athletic greens from here on out.
AG1, baby. Yeah, run to my place.
Yeah.
Come on.
I love that. But even,
So you're
even beyond
smoking
that,
athletic greens now?
Yeah, anything. Mainlining it. Whatever.
mocktails.
Yeah.
Athletic greens mocktails.
Running our kids in it and then smelling them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I had mentioned before the break that I'm going to London in a couple weeks. And the main reason for that is I'm going to be participating in your upcoming Carfest event. So I wanted you to share a little bit about what that event is about. But just the fact that it's called Carfest is interesting because it illustrates a little bit of your arc, because it's not, you used to be like a guy with a huge car collection, right? Like you had like a Jay Leno situation going on. But you don't live that way. You're on vacation. Everything you packed is light walk-in style, and that backpack over there. You've really stripped down your life and gotten more clear on what's important, what's not important. So as a lead into talking about Carfest, like just share a little bit about that journey, because I think people think, well, that's fine for him to say, but like I need that success, and that success is going to fill that hole for me. And you found otherwise.
Yeah, this is turning into a proper show now.
I know. I can't help it.
Adam,
I told you the outline. I'm going to
people wanted Roland back, and Roland was back for 25 minutes.
There's a bunch of stuff I need to talk about, but go ahead.
Really?
I want to contextualize this.
Jeez. I just came here to watch.
Yeah.
I promise I came here to watch.
Now you have to open your heart and soul.
Oh, jeez.
I know.
A tear would be good.
Carfest started off as I always wanted to do a family festival. But I knew that calling it a family fest or whatever would be something that would be a worthy thing to do, but it wouldn't get people through the door. And then one day I was going to this, and no, I wasn't going anywhere. It was January. It was the third week in January. It was raining even more than it usually does in Britain. And it was cold and it was miserable. And there was this car show, an indoor car show in January when nobody had any money. And there was a 25-mile tailback on the motorway, the highway, because people were queuing up to go to this car show. I think, people go to car show, third week in January, indoors. Let's call our family festival a car show. And so we did, and it worked. And so we got families to come to the car. It was a car festival, but there were bands on as well. And that was 21 festivals ago. And since then it's transmogrified. But I was into cars at the time. Sorry, but I evaded your question, and I didn't want to.
No, but it's a great thing to bring kids to. So it's like Zuma. If it was like a construction vehicle show, we'd be there. Yeah.
Well, it's fun. It's fun, isn't it? It gets people through the gate, but then you bring everything else in the back door. It's a bit like your podcast. It's a bit like the fact that it's an easy conversation. It's you have a lovely articulation, and a great point of view on life. You've lived and died once, and we all know you get two lives, not one. The second of which only begins when you realize the first one is over, and that's the phoenix from the flames, and that's the great inspiration for all of us. Today's a new day, every day above ground, all this kind of stuff. But it's those. Do you bring these stories in via the back door? Is that too sort of strategic, or is it a soft launch, or does it make it easy for people to get in, or whatever? But that's how our festival started, as a car festival. And now it's still called Carfest. We thought about changing the name, but it still has great cars, and it now has 21 bands, and it has loads of people, and you'll come to speak at it. And it's fucking great.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's great.
And you get like 80, 100,000 people coming through, right?
Yeah.
And all the money goes to charity. 100%.
Every single penny goes to charity.
Amazing.
Incredible.
So I know the Happy Pair guys, I think, are coming.
Yeah, Russell Brand's coming. Laura's coming.
So I don't know where you're going to throw me in here or there, but I'm willing and ready to do whatever you want me to do.
Many hay bales that you can sit on, and you can orate, and you can hypnotize, and you can do whatever the hell you like, Rich Roll.
Cool.
Rich, are you still into hypnotism?
I had the hypnotism guy on the
Hypnosis?
show. Right? He told me I was not that hypnotizable, though. They do this test where you look up or whatever with your eyeballs, and they can tell how receptive you are to hypnosis.
That's good.
Did you know that? If you listen to my podcast, you would know this.
I knew that.
Yeah.
His dad taught him. But Ed Hawkins, you read Ed Hawkins has written a book called The Men on Magic Carpets.
I don't know this book.
Do you know this?
No.
Oh, it's so good. So for the US military employed hypnosis, mass hypnosis. You know this?
Yeah, it was like the Men Staring at Goats project.
Yeah,
right?
same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And from the same seed of the US military, and they brought in some famous psychics from around the world, and they didn't care if these guys were frauds or not, because just in case they weren't, because in war anything is worth it, depending on your point of view.
Right.
And they brought in all these people, and they said there is something here. There is something here. And what they did was, the book is all about the fact that these super hypnotizers with these superpowers of hypnosis, who were employed in the military, who were soldiers but just happened to have them, and they were deployed behind enemy lines to disrupt the vibration of the enemy. They then, at the end of any particular conflict, were not unemployable but unemployed. So sports teams in the US started to employ them to place them in opposing fans' areas of the stadium, disrupt the vibration of the crowd that would then influence the players on the pitch and fuck up their whole gameplay.
Wow.
And it's a real thing. He's a guy called Ed Hawkins, and you would love him.
He's like the J. Robert Oppenheimer of hypnosis.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also they say
the
that
Manhattan Project of hypnosis.
Yes.
But they say that cinema and radio shows and podcasts and literature is all a form of mass hypnosis anyway.
Oh, there's no question
Storytelling
about
for
that.
sure. Yes.
There's no question about that.
Speaking of mass hypnosis, I think there's people running around LA still dressed in pink from Barbie. Now they're just filing into SoFi for the for Taylor's. Yeah. I mean, there is something about social media and the group think kind of paradigm, not for good and for bad, there's a hypnosis of the phone, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. That's we're conducting a massive experiment on
we just don't know it
at the moment.
Yes,
we kind of know it, but we're all signing up for it anyway.
Some people know.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to go to Carfest. What's the website for it and the dates? Because it's not sold out if anyone's listening.
Carfest.org. We can always fit more people in. Come and join us. Even if you can't stand me, just come anyway.
There's 100,000 people there. You don't have to rub elbows with Chris.
Absolutely. You don't need to do that. But lots of great people there for all the right reasons. And it's just, somebody once said one of the best things, two different people said two different things. One said, one of the best things you can do is buy a ticket to help someone you'll never meet. And that's what you'll be doing by coming to this festival. And somebody else said, another great thing that a human being can do is give other human beings a reason to get together. And this fulfills both those.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And you will have a great time.
Yeah, cool. August 24 to 26?
August 25 to 27.
25 to 27.
But we'll take you whenever you get there. And if you want to leave early to go to Switzerland, that's coming up, by the way.
Right. Yes. Exactly. So after I do Carfest, I'm actually headed to Zurich, which I'm very excited about. The reason for that is to visit the headquarters of On Running, the running shoe brand. You see I'm wearing the On shoes. Because we have I'm taking this opportunity to announce this incredible, huge new partnership that we formed with On. So I'm going to go to the headquarters and visit with the folks there, which is honestly, like I'm happy I'm going to Carfest, but really I'm going to Zurich.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I'm fine. I'm happy to be the
visit
bridesmaid.
with these guys.
Yeah, we'll take whatever rich role we can get.
And this is a relationship that we've been cultivating for some time. It's a cornerstone partnership in not just the business of this podcast, but I think it's representative of the value set behind the why behind everything that we do. And let's face it, this is a commercial enterprise. The show doesn't exist without sponsors. But I think, it's interesting to kind of address this from a broader perspective to kind of understand the decisions that get made about who to align with in this commercial enterprise. If you listen to podcasts, you're used to hearing ads. For a lot of shows, it's just, something that people do. Like they just do ads for, whoever will buy ad space on their show. And the longer that we've been doing this, the more I've come to realize that I don't really want to participate in that game. Obviously, we need sponsors to do what it is that we do, but I'm not interested in just aligning with whoever. I'd much rather have, and this is the consensus with everyone who works here, to have fewer partners, but more in-depth relationships with those partners. So as you might imagine, we're on the receiving end of a lot of inquiries, people who want to advertise on the show. And I would say we say no to, 95 out of 100 of those requests. We reject them because there's just something that's not properly aligned. But every once in a while, somebody shows up where the values align almost perfectly with what we're doing. And I would say wholeheartedly that that's the case with On. This is a company that is really headed in the right direction. They truly are all about trying to get people out and move in the most kind of community-based way. They are an organization that has big designs on the future of products and sustainability and circularity and the materials that they're working with. And they're just a high vibe group of people who, I just think we can do amazing things together. So I'm really excited to launch into that.
Can I ask you a question about like the interworkings of how you choose? Like how you say you're hyper selective, and obviously the bigger the show has gotten, the more corporate opportunities are coming to you, right? Which I would imagine are pretty lucrative. So how do you go about what's the way that you kind of these opportunities come to you and how you make the selection? And in terms of On, like how did that come about?
So it comes in various ways. I mean, you get incoming emails all the time. And we have a management team that kind of vets all this stuff as a kind of first line of defense. So it all has to pass through their kind of machinery before it even gets to me, a lot of the incoming. But often I'm looking at companies that are out there and going after the ones that, I think would be good partners rather than just reacting to what's out there, being intentional. Like, here are the people that I would like to align with. And sometimes, that takes a long time to cultivate those relationships and get to a place where it makes sense on both sides, because it's a partnership. It isn't just, oh, you're an advertiser. It's like, hey, I realize like I need to enter this relationship from a perspective of how I'm delivering value for the brand. It's not just how much money can I get from them, so I'll do a 60-second read. Like, yes, you hear the ad, but what's really going on is this exchange of values and how we can mutually benefit each other through this exchange. And so very few companies make it through that. Or there are some cool companies that are doing really interesting things, but maybe there's something off about them. Let's revisit that a little bit later. It's kind of like a dynamic organism that's always shifting and evolving.
Right. No, I mean, it's good to hear that, because I know personally, my parents will buy anything you suggest. So the fact that there is a nice, like, you're really vetting it, and it's really not just something that kind of topically aligns, but there's a deeper alignment, I think is cool.
No, they're conscious decisions. Yeah. They're value-based decisions.
Yeah.
But people know. I know when I'm listening.
I hope so.
No, but everybody knows. We all know. That's why that show's called The X Factor. Everybody knows. Sometimes we don't even know we know, but we know.
I definitely don't know. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Chris, how's this going for you so far?
It's hell. It's hell. I'm trying to pretend that it's okay. This is not okay. Even when we got a little bit meaningful before, that's still, none of this is okay. I just came to Los Angeles for 28 days to pretend to live here. So that's what I do once a year. I come and pretend that I live here. Then I toy with what kind of job could I get if I came here? And top of the list so far, I'll do anything here. Just not behind the mic. I would come and work on the team. I'd come here and run Russell Brand's company. I would do that. But his company's in the UK, so he would have to move his company.
He's like your neighbor.
He lives next
door to you, basically.
Yeah. But so he would have to move everybody ahead just so I could come and get a job here.
Uh-huh.
But then I was thinking about, I could be a pool guy. I'd be very happy being a pool guy up in the hills, up Doheny, up in the bird
What
streets.
about one of those guys that like spins the arrow at the car dealerships?
No.
Not going to spin the arrow.
No, not nowadays. I'm 57. The digits weren't what they used. I don't have the dexterity. But at the pool, I could do the pool. And it's very meditative.
It's
so I
nice.
could do the pool. I could walk dogs, nice big GMC van with the sliding door. It's a lot about the vehicle for me because I really want to get a Rivian.
Yeah.
But you can't get a Rivian on planet Earth at the moment.
I don't think you can get the Rivian on the dog walker's salary.
No,
either.
I know that. But
Well, this is LA. We were talking beforehand. There's certain
Tell them the
jobs
dogs-
that are. We were thinking about a new segment on the podcast only in LA.
tell them about
because
your
you
dog
can be
whisperer.
a superstar pool guy or a dog walker in Los Angeles
That's true.
or
be
a dog
an absolute
wrangler.
rock star.
Do you want to talk about the dog wrangler?
Tell us about
We have-
Aki's pack.
We have the world's greatest. It's an insult to call him a dog walker. So we have 2 big dogs, and there's a guy in our area called Aki, and he has developed quite the reputation for being the guy to like take care of your dogs like during the day if you're off at work. And he shows up with a trailer, and he'll come into our house and get our dogs at like 5:30, 6 in the morning. And those dogs will join a pack of about 40 dogs. And he takes these dogs out on trails that he makes his own trails. He goes up in the Santa Monica Mountains and like bushwhacks his own trails. And he rides a horse bareback. And he has all these dogs without leashes, no leashes. And he is in total command of these dogs. And they have a blast, just running all over, going in creeks and all this kind of stuff. This guy is an absolute wizard. Like he thinks like a dog. He understands dogs. These dogs respect him.
He's a very handsome dog, isn't
And
he?
he's a very handsome guy.
He's
right?
legitimately an
And so
alpha
he
dog. He's
is-
actually an alpha
He makes
dog.
his own dog food. He delivers it to your house. Like this guy is a superstar, right?
Sounds like he could afford a Rivian.
Yeah.
This is a,
I wonder
maybe-
how much he gets paid.
that's not, no,
That's my
it's
Rivian
not
guy.
cheap. It's not cheap.
It's not cheap.
I think he's doing fine. But my point being, like, only in LA would this guy be able to like do his thing. And, we got a Snake Wrangler guy like that.
Who's the Snake
There's
Wrangler?
pool. He dresses up like Crocodile Dundee and he shows up at your house. So if you're, in certain months of the year, like rattlesnakes are a thing. Like it's a real thing. They're
In
all
the-
over the place.
the
So if
spring,
you're gonna
right?
have like a dinner party outside, or you're gonna have a wedding at your house or a birthday party, you kind of want to have this guy come over and do a quick check before a bunch of little kids are going to be running around.
Right.
And invariably, no matter what, he finds a rattlesnake. So I'm convinced that he's releasing them.
He brings them
He
with him.
brings them with him.
He has one
Yeah.
rattlesnake.
But if he
and
does
always
find them,
brings
then he
around.
will, if I'm being charitable, he does find them. He'll relocate them. And then he does all this
To the next
snake
house.
education. Like he's got binders and he does stuff with kids where he explains to them what happens if you get bit by a snake and all
He
this stuff like
relocates them
that.
to the next party.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
he
that's
can
right. So he can release
exercise
it
the-
again.
yeah, it's just-
Exactly. It's circular.
It's
It's
a
a
good
circular
business.
economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is.
I know. So I can see that for you.
Yeah.
But you're like, listen, you're locked in
I am.
London
I am
with
locked in.
Virgin,
I
right?
am.
You're not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, but I think one day we'll end up here. I love it here. I used to live here. I love it.
Yeah. What is it about LA? Because I'm falling in love with London.
We could do
we can
swap-
we can
just
swap
if
we
you
could
like.
swap for we could do half a year.
Yeah.
It'd be fine.
Yeah.
LA, some people say they don't like, America, which is an understatement. Some people say they don't like Los Angeles, which I think is an understatement. It's like, because there's some part of everybody and everywhere that is likable,
Mm.
and what is good and what is bad, it is only thinking that makes it so. Adam, who said that?
You just said it.
Shakespeare said it before
Yeah.
me, but
Somebody else did
Yeah.
beforehand, but that's okay
Yeah,
because he's the
Wilhelm.
latest to say it.
I heard of him.
Yeah.
yeah, I for me, it just lights me up. And for a long time, I didn't come here on purpose. And I didn't come here on purpose because I knew it would light me up so much. It would influence my thinking and my style and all this kind of stuff. And because I witnessed other people that had been over here. Because, my wife loves New York. She likes LA, but she really loves New York and likes LA. I like New York and I love LA. It's horses for courses, I think. But I witnessed a lot of people that came over here, then came back to the UK and were too sort of Americano by it all or Los Angelo'd up.
Uh-huh.
And so I left it a while until I was 27, 26. I came here with work, first of all, to do a TV thing. And 27 years old, came out, fell in love with the whole thing, creative process. People mean it, they get it done. You've got to be any good to be in the room. You know, that great phrase, you know, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
Rarely happens over here. It may happen for one meeting. If it happens for two, you got to have a serious word with yourself. I loved all the pre-breakfast stuff. You know, we had a few meetings with, well, we were hot at the time for a TV show, and Bernie Brustine was my manager. You know Bernie Brustine?
Oh, wow.
I didn't know him personally, but
he was my
certainly know who he
manager.
is.
Him and Brad Gray.
Right.
And came over here. And, you know, all the things that happened before 10. You know, breakfast meeting here, breakfast meeting there. It's exciting stuff. It's juicy, you know. People can say it's BS. I didn't find it BS at all. I find people who call out other people who are doing things, it's a lot of projection, you know, because they're not doing anything.
Well, it's easy to make fun of Los Angeles, and you know, there's a lot of problems here in traffic. But I think most people's experience is they fly into LAX, which is the world's most embarrassing airport. It's just fucking horrible, right? And then they're on the 405. They're stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
It's, you know, crowded. It takes forever to get from one side of town to the next. So it's an easy, low-hanging target.
Also, it's the problem with LA as someone who's a visitor who doesn't have a connection here is that it's kind of obtuse. It's hard to wrap your head around. It's like this massive kind of concrete
there's no locus
dragon.
to
right.
anything that's going on.
And especially for years when downtown was like a no-go zone, like there was just nothing culturally interesting happening down there, really, in terms of like entertainment or restaurants. There was some interesting kind of niches, but there wasn't really it wasn't really the happening spot. Now there's a lot more happening in all the different neighborhoods, but it's just hard to kind of know where to go when and what's happening because it's just so big. And there's so you've carved out Venice, right? Venice is your spot.
Yeah.
And so you'll notice that you probably won't leave Venice too much, right?
No, I mean, not at all, because we don't have a car while we're here. So,
right.
So,
so that's a good way to carve out a time in LA is to pick your spot.
Yeah. And just, you know, get into the detail of it all.
Yeah.
And live, pretend, you know, we're very fortunate. I get 4 weeks holiday in the summer. So we rent a house, we don't stay in a hotel. So we can pretend to live here. I'm sure it's nothing at all like living here, even from having lived here in the past, but that was up in the hills. But I love it. I think the freedom of the difference in the demographic of the people you can see if you take a run on the boardwalk at 6 a.m., between 6 a.m. and 5 a.m. in 5 minutes, you've seen so many different kinds of people, different genres, different bents, different status or whatever that means, you know. But you know, the only thing to fear is fear itself. I think, you know, they say, but isn't that a police helicopter hovering over your house at 500 feet for most of the day? I say, yeah. How much would that cost, security-wise? Who's got that?
That's a
Meghan and Harry don't have that.
No.
And they're paying through the nose.
No.
This is for free. It's the safest neighborhood in the world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's for free. You said something before we started about Pareto's law of living.
Pareto's Principle.
Pareto's Principle.
Yeah.
Go.
Talk to us about that, because you were saying that there's something on the your experience of running on the boardwalk, surfing there, and then seeing LA come to life in the morning kind of made you think of it.
Well, Pareto's Principle is the 80-20 rule. Basically, there's different interpretations of it, but 80-20. So, for example, in business, in life, friends, whatever, energy. So 20% of your activity gives you 80% of the sort of end product of whatever that may be. 20% of your customers sometimes give you 80% of your revenue. 80% of your customers only give you 20% of your revenue, and often 80% or even 100% of your problems. So it's about identifying the most efficient energy you can put into various lanes of your life that will give you the greatest sort of payback.
Yeah.
And you can do it with people, and you can do it with energy. And for example, in the morning you get up, well begun is half done. You know, so you win. So you wake up. Somebody said the other day, I woke up, and when I was living this life, which wasn't great, I woke up and I'd just been dumped, and I didn't like my boss, and I didn't have any money, and I was about to get thrown out of my apartment. Well, actually, no, that's not what happened. What happened was I woke up and opened my eyes. That's actually what happened.
Right.
But the story goes, blah, 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 blah. So that's the opposite of, well, we're going to half done. But you get up in the morning, you do something great, you set your intention for 10 minutes, or you have a bit of a moment of gratitude. That's already great. You've already flipped flick the right switch, not the wrong switch. And then you go for a run, or you do some stretching, or you drink some water, and that's even better. And so if you front load the day, or front load your business, or front load your friendship or your relationship, or front load your body with something that's great for you, then the rest of the day, it's a bit like living in LA and having all those pre-breakfast meetings. The rest of the day can be administration and bureaucracy to sort of varnish the beautiful thing that you've just created. And often you find that we are expending a lot of the 100% of our energy on zero outcome. And so Pareto's principle is all about that. It's 80-20, or it can be 99-1. And when you're exercising or you're gardening, exercising and training is different. So if you exercise, you're exercising. If you're training via exercise for an event, which is useful, isn't it? Because it gives you sort of something to aim for. But if you are looking, for example, for the blue zones, Dan Buettner, so one of the number one activities in the blue zone is to garden, because garden is movement, but it's also community. But sometimes when you exercise, all you have left, from the moment you finish exercising, all that happens sometimes is guilt. Guilt by beginning to destroy the hour of exercise that you've just achieved by consuming, or by sitting down, or by doing something else. Whereas if you garden, you get the exercise, and after the exercise, you also have a garden. So that's like 99-1,
right? Because
it's giving you everything and costing you nothing other than your attention and your energy and your time. And what do they say? Energy grows where attention goes. And the better the attention that you focus on, the more it gives birth to more of that stuff, that magnetism of stuff that makes you want to. Not even want to be a better person, when you automatically start to be better. And when you cross that threshold of where things that were good for you became an effort, and you didn't look forward to doing them even though you wanted the outcome, that moment when you miss a workout and you feel like you did before not wanting to do a workout, you have the regret of not having it worked out. You start to feel off when you don't work out.
Sure.
And you cross the threshold, you go, this is the other side of the fence that people talk about.
I'm just going to get you. You want to take this seat?
Yeah.
I'm going to get.
Let's go get a drink.
You're right. We shouldn't have 3 people, so I'm going to leave, and you can sit here.
Can I actually go and watch the rest of it?
You can.
I would love to do that.
You can.
Well, we're going to take a quick ad break. Anyway.
Can I just apologize to all fellow Roland fans? This was a mistake.
Look at that. He just drops like a wisdom bomb and then declares that it was a mistake.
I love it, man. How great to have the number one Roll-On fan sitting with us.
Unbelievable.
And then leaving us like without like a puff of smoke.
Yes. Thank you, Chris. If we were going to have a third wheel, he is the guy to do it.
Oh God, yeah. I think yes.
We're leaving Chris's chair open in the event that he might want to return. We'll see. It's up to him.
Can I just switch seats sometimes? Just like
I don't know. Just tell Jason so he can make sure the mic is hot. No, you cannot.
There's a lot of rules around here lately.
Well, yeah, you like Pareto's principle.
Pareto. Like
that's your new rule, right? Are you?
Well, it's now called the Chris Evans rule for living.
There you go. Yeah, that was a mic drop moment. For the old school roll-on hardcores, we're going to do a little bit of news, share a little streaming recs, I guess, right?
Yeah,
we're going to keep it breezy. But we can't not talk about Sean Conway breaking the Iron Cowboy's record for most consecutive Ironmans. This guy clocked off 105. Chris was just saying during the break that he came on twice. Came on twice on Chris's show, right before he broke the record or right after? The day of. And then he kept going. What was interesting is obviously he wanted to do 102 because then he would eclipse James's record.
Yep.
But then after that, it was like a day by day thing. He would wake up and decide whether he was going to keep going.
Yep.
And he kept going. And then on the 105th day, he was sort of like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is the last time I'm going to do it. But he knocked off 105 of them. This is a really interesting guy. He's from Zimbabwe. He lives in Wales. He started this thing off on April 10th. So again, an Ironman every single day, not missing not missing, no days off, 105 total. Also interesting is that after James set his record back in June of 2022, Sean started to, that was his first attempt at doing this. He was going to try to break James's record.
remember
And I think
that.
he got like 6 in and he got injured and
Yeah.
had to call it off. And it was like, maybe not so easy, right? Like,
we talked about that. Yeah.
but you know, to his credit, he basically healed up and got right back on the horse and went after it again. And he seemed to do it like these guys. I haven't met Sean. I mean, Chris knows Sean, and I guess Sean's going to be at Carfest, right? Which is cool. I'm going to try to do a podcast with him in London. But just based on what I have intuited from following him on Instagram, he seems pretty chill. Like he doesn't have that same kind of Iron Cowboy super intensity. He's got little kids, seems like a super nice guy. He kind of got fit in the process of doing it. He has a before and after picture on Instagram right now where the image of him without a shirt on before he began, he just looked like a dude, right? He's all ripped up at the end of it, but I don't know. There seems to be a more laid back kind of attitude about doing this.
Did he
in
have
comparison
a
to
team?
James?
Did he have a team like the same idea, like a Peloton for the bike and
It seemed like he did.
pack,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, probably it didn't gain momentum like James, where there were like thousands of people at the end. But I think he had a core crew of people who were showing up pretty much.
It's an amazing accomplishment.
day
I think
out.
the reason James thing took off around here in the States, I think, was because there were so many people just going there and doing their first Ironman with him, and it became like a community event.
Yeah.
You know, partly because he had to do the run slow, and that made it more accessible. So it's almost like
Right.
the injury that James had that forced him to do it a certain way. It'd be interesting to
It would
talk
be
to
slow
Sean.
no matter what, though. Like
right,
you're
right.
you're doing those marathons pretty slow if you're doing it 105
Every day.
days, in
Yeah,
a row.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it opens itself up to kind of a community
Right.
experience.
Fair
I
enough.
think.
Fair enough.
But I'm looking forward to meeting him and learning more and hopefully sharing it with all of you on the show.
Very exciting.
What else do you want to talk about?
You know, did you hear about Kristen Harilla? I know it's not on here, but she's the Norwegian climber that just broke Nirmal Purja's record for getting
No, I
to the
didn't know
top
about
of
this.
all the 8,000 meter peaks in the shortest amount of time. I think it's just over 3 months. You know, Nims did 6 months, which took a record from 7 years to like 6 months. And then Kristen was trying to do it last year and got stymied, couldn't get into Tibet. And so finally got the paperwork. So she still did all 14 or I think there's 14 of them. Yeah, 14 of the 8,000 meter peaks, but she couldn't do them in the time. So she didn't get the record. And so she basically got her paperwork lined up and did her first one in Tibet. So got that done and then fired them all off. And so she broke Nim's record. She originally financed this attempt by selling her condo, I think it was, or her home in Norway. I talked to her once when I was doing the Lakba Sherpa story, and I talked to her about how hard it is for female climbers, you know, and mountaineers especially, to make a living and to get sponsorship. And so she's a perfect example. You haven't really heard about this, even though it's big news in Norway. It didn't really hit. Part of the reason, that's why we love.
This is why, like, maybe you would have read about this in the New York Times sports section.
Yeah, I mean,
in an article written by Adam Skolnick.
There was an article about her when she was going for the record the first time, and then there was that story, and so I would have thought they'd do a follow up, but part of the reason they didn't is because it's kind of in flux over there. But yeah, exactly. So I just want to give her props because I've covered Nims before, and I just want to give Kristen props. Pretty amazing, and you can find her on Instagram and find all about her. And it's an amazing accomplishment. I mean, 8,000 meter peaks in 3 months.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts.
It's gnarly.
Good for her.
Yeah,
congratulations. That's amazing.
Now she says she's not going to do them for a while. She's done 28 in 2 years.
Understandably.
Yeah, understood. We should also mention, because in the past this was never mentioned, she wasn't alone. She had a whole team, and one member of her team, Tenjin Sherpa, was kind of her primary partner in crime on this. A guide, helped fix everything that she needed to be done. Right-hand man. They took every step together, and they did L14 peaks together. So he also did it in 92 days. So it's not just Kristen's record now. It's Kristen and Tenjin Sherpa's record.
Dumb question, but how come they don't share the record then? How come it's her?
I think they do.
Because,
I think they do. That's where I misspoke. I think they do share it, but I think they do. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, congrats. That's an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah. Congrats to both.
Are we going to do a little summer entertainment roundup?
Let's do it. Let's do a speed round.
We'll keep it quick.
Speed round.
Off the top,
Yep.
we are in the middle of a strike right now. Writers Guild is striking.
right.
The Screen Actors Guild is striking.
I know.
Are we allowed to recommend stuff?
Well, that's the thing.
We support labor. Let's just say that.
We
up
support
front.
labor. I'm sorry, I did do an event for Netflix around Deepest Breath.
Are you some kind of like scab?
I didn't.
But you recorded that. Also, like being in a documentary is not a SAG thing.
That's
you
what
weren't
I'm
appearing
saying.
as an actor.
But like, you know,
but you're with big streamer.
That's you. The cast of Oppenheimer.
You're in the pocket. You're a shill for big streaming.
I'm very cheap. I come very cheap. I did do an event, like Netflix did a screening in LA, and I did an event to support Laura McGann, the filmmaker. And so I did that, and I was on. Then Slate did a story about how like they felt like the critic felt manipulated by my Deepest Breath or something, and so then I was on Canadian public radio supporting it. So I have done two things now to support Netflix during the strike, and I have felt a little bit funny about that, I will say.
Interesting. Yeah, this is like is a weird like internal conflict in the Skolnick value set.
Yes, but I also, as much as I support the strike and I support the actors and the writers, I mean, let's not make it out like they're coal miners, okay? Let's not.
Now you're you're treading on thin ice right now, buddy. There's a lot of struggling talent out there right now. There's good reason for these strikes right now. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. There was a big meeting last week. I thought that perhaps some resolution was on the horizon, but it remains to be seen. In the meantime, yes, we support the writers. We support the actors. I hope that they can find a way to resolve this quickly because we love our content. In the meantime, I think we can still celebrate the product of their labor without being
100%. I think a lot of
it's interesting though. Yeah. Sorry to step on your words, but a lot of like actors won't do podcasts now. Well, they won't do podcasts to promote a certain movie or show, right? They won't do interviews. They won't do press junkets. They're not showing up at premieres. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in podcast landia because there's a lot of celebrity-driven shows out there that are reliant on booking, actors as their guests. And I think there's carve-outs or cutouts. I think there's something, kind of in between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law in terms of what they can and can't do. Like if you're promoting a book, you can come on and do that as long as you're kind of talking about that, but you can't come on any kind of press outlet to promote like a show or a movie.
Right.
Yeah,
it's all in flux, right? And you try to get like approval or something from the union. It is interesting to see like, and not only I think like broader view on the strike, I made my joke, but like it actually has kind of kickstarted a wave of labor solidarity. And in the wake, there has been baristas that are being organized. The UPS almost went on strike and was averted at the last minute. The LA city workers are now going on strike on Tuesday. The airport's going to be all but shut down. Like the hotel workers here in LA and in San Francisco, they're striking all over the place. I forget how many tens of thousands of workers are striking because they can't get a fair wage and a living wage. That was the crux of my joke. But really, in reality, the writers were first kind of on this front line. So it's interesting to see writers take the lead in labor. Just think that's, as a writer, I find that hilarious.
And we're going to turn into France.
Yes.
Result.
But I mean, that's kind of an unexpected outcome of this, of like really kind of kickstarting labor. And I think that's good because we have this society that's cleaving, the haves and the have-nots. And it's important to like, labor was the reason that when we first had this problem in the beginning of industrialization, it was unions that solved the problem and created the middle class. So,
Yeah. What an intro into streaming recommendations.
Oh, by the way, watch The Bear.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's what I'm getting at. The Bear is back. Not exactly a news flash. It's been out for a while, but longtime listeners of Roll On know how much we love The Bear. Season 2 was released recently. I will admit, after the first, 2 episodes of season 2, I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep this thing at the level that I had come to, expect after season 1. And then it just kicked into a new gear and went insane. And I think that show, this show, The Bear, is one of the finest television shows ever made. Like season 2 of The Bear is just off the rails good. I loved it.
I love it too. I preferred the first season just because it was so fresh and so interesting, and it felt like so vital. And there's episodes. This season 2 is great, so I'm not meaning to disparage it, but like I think prefer as a piece of work season 1. But I think I'm always that guy that likes that. I liked Atlanta season 1. I kind of like the first iteration because it's the purest kind of distillation. But I will say, Fishes, I watched it again last night in preparation because we might talk about it. And it's like shades of Goodfellas good. I mean, it is on a level of production and in every facet, art direction, obviously the dialogue and the script, the acting. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, is this the year of Jamie Lee Curtis?
Yeah, she's off the rails. I mean, this is a tour de force episode. I think it's episode 6.
Yeah, I think
season
6 or
2.
7.
It's called Fishes.
Yeah.
Are we doing spoilers or not?
It's been out a long time.
Yeah.
We don't have to say everything, but like, go ahead, speak your mind.
I mean, I'm not going to go out of my way to spoil anything, but if you don't want anything to be spoiled, maybe fast forward through this part. Fishes is basically an episode that focuses on Christmas dinner, and all kinds of characters come together, and it's just insanity ensues. Like it's just chaos on a whole new level of what you thought was possible, rendered on film. It's hilarious. It's poignant. It's heartbreaking. And Jamie Lee Curtis plays the matriarch of the Berzados, and she's the matriarch of insanity.
Yeah,
her performance is really something to behold. It requires a couple viewings to really understand what's going on. Every character plays this very unique role, and I think anybody who has any kind of challenging extended family situation, who knows what it's like to go home into a perilous holiday dinner event, will find some way to relate to one of the characters.
Yeah.
Because they're all archetypes in their own right.
Well, also, like, if you've ever had a mom that has thrown a dinner party and it was their idea and then like is losing their mind as they put together this amazing thing and is wondering why no one's helping and all that. This is like that 10x. Like this is the
right. It's not. It's at 11. The whole thing.
Yeah.
But the person who's like, leave me alone. I'm going to deliver this meal because love is correlated closely with these. What you're going to be eating, and like so, there's so much intensity going into that. While also saying, why isn't anyone helping me? It's like, come here, I need help. No, go away, leave me alone. Like just to like. Let's just say I know a few people like this.
My mom used to get uptight at the end of these things, and I'd be like, I think to myself, my mom probably going to listen to this. I think to myself, well, this was your idea. Like this whole
right. No one asked you to do this.
Whole party was your idea.
I know. So, I've had many versions of this dinner that are probably at a 6 or maybe a 6.5. And this is at an 11.
It's just amazing.
And it's a murderer's row of talent. Like the co-stars that show up in this episode. You got Bob Odenkirk, John Bernthal, who's just electric, Sarah Paulson, the cool cousin who got out, who comes back to let everyone know that there is an exit out of this, this insane asylum. And then low key, John Mulaney just like stealing the entire episode with his, deadpan humor. I mean, it's extraordinary.
I thought it's the best thing I've seen him in. Like, it's the most fun. I mean, obviously he's a great talent, but like,
well, has he ever even had the opportunity to do something like that
maybe
before?
Not. Like, that's what I mean. Like, and it's so period, and like the art is so good, and everything speaks to a moment, and it speaks to the pathos that you understand why Carmy is Carmy. You understand why Richie is Richie. You see it all kind of happen. It's like it speaks to everything you've been wondering about these people. That's what's so
it's the origin story for all of these characters. And Julie hadn't watched The Bear, so after I finished season 2, I went back and started from the beginning of season 1, and you see from the very first episode, everything is established. The drawing of the Bear restaurant is like on the wall that Bernthal, like the exchange with Bernthal in Fishes, and the clock motif like that gets hammered home with Jamie Lee Curtis and the alarm that's constantly going off, and the attention to like the ticking clock and the pressure cooker of what it's like to be in a kitchen to prepare a meal. Like all those seeds are planted in the early episodes of season 1. And then when you get to Fishes, you're like, oh, you
Yeah.
see it all like played
It's
out.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It is beautiful and like a bomb going off. Like
Right.
it's amazing. I agree with you. Like John Bernthal, like, I mean, come on. Like, why isn't he in everything? Like, he's unbelievable.
He increasingly is in everything.
Yes. Yeah, there's a reason.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, incredible, the emotion that these actors go through. And I just want to say one thing about what I think is interesting about this show. And I'm not like a film school guy and I'm not that well versed in structure in terms of production, but I've noticed a couple things, 2 different shows, but the HBO show, it's Euphoria, has this thing where it's like reality at 120%. And because of that, it's so original. And no one really else is doing that. Like reality at 120, 125% is so intense. And you feel that as a viewer. I don't particularly, with that show, enjoy the experience of watching it, but I could see why people are just captivated by it because it's so original. And in this show, obviously, they're not the first people to do it. The creator is not the first person to do it. But I feel like when I'm watching it, the actors know to step on each other's lines. And so I don't know how it's written on the page, but they're on purpose not listening, not waiting for the other actor to finish. And that gives it such even though it's unnatural, like if you ask them to do it, they're probably their first chance. They'd want to give everyone space to say their lines and they'd want to listen. And that's how you think about it. But in reality, people are it's messy, especially in an environment like that. That episode, it's throughout the show, but that episode really shows it. And it creates this speed and organic feel and power. And I just think it's really interesting because you don't see it in a lot of shows. And I think that's one of the hidden secrets to this show.
But it's authentic to the dynamic of this family.
100%.
It's not like an artificial technique. It's
Yeah.
just like, this is how these people communicate.
Yeah, right.
You know, no one's listening to anybody. Everybody's kind of set in their way. They're all shouting at each other.
Right.
You know, it's bananas. How do you feel about the facts?
Wait.
The facts. Come on.
I love the facts. Come on. The baseball cards?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Matty Matheson, who plays one of the facts, the main facts guy.
The main facts.
He's in truth like a Toronto chef, like a celebrated Toronto chef. He's not an actor. I think he did some stuff with Vice.
Was
you
he
know,
in
the heavy set guy with the tattoo, all the tattoos and all
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
I love him.
He's not really an actor. And I guess the guy who
He
played
is
the
now.
other fact, that was his first time acting. He was a crew member. I don't know what he did on the crew or whatever.
They're great together. They're
But
absolutely
I
great
love
together.
when they're hitting up Mulaney for like $500 for their baseball card thing. And they're like, do you have $500? And he's like, yes, I have $500. I'm a 43-year-old man. It's like incredible stuff.
It's amazing.
But I will say, as wild as Fishes was, the following episode, Forks, is definitely my favorite in the whole series. This is the episode where Richie goes to stage at a fancy restaurant, and he goes on this arc. And that character, played by Evan Moss Bacharach, is just, I mean, that guy is Lord. Like that, his performance in that episode, and the kind of realization that he has and his ability to understand that his gift is service, and it comes through. The messenger in that is the guy who got sober, who says, I'm here to serve and I'm grateful to be here. And he conveys to Richie how his life had changed as a result of sobriety. And Richie is in a place where he's able to hear that and understand that he too has that thing that makes him come alive. And that light bulb moment for him changes everything when he returns to the Bear and is able to participate in that community on a whole nother level than he could have previously. And I just thought there was so much heart and beauty in that episode. Like, that's the one that, as exciting as Fishes is, the episode that follows is the one that really has stayed with me.
Yeah. So one is like a rock and roll concert in the 70s or like a wild funk party. And the other one is like an ambient kind of like experience, because I think, is that the same one that they're in Copenhagen? Doesn't it go back and forth between Copenhagen, or is that just a different, am I mixing two?
Yeah, it's been like a couple months since I watched it. Well, there was the pastry chef guy who goes to Copenhagen.
Maybe that's a different
episode.
Okay. But this one too, it feels a lot more, it's more ambient. It's like, it's not like as kinetic. You feel that it's all internal.
But you can't maintain that level of intensity every episode. So I think going into season 2, they realize like, hey, we got to let this thing breathe a little bit.
I agree.
We can choose our moments. We can have our fishes, but what are we doing in between? And that's the real heart and connective tissue that makes it all come together. And it's like a recipe in the kitchen, like how they're baking all these episodes to create this, this extraordinary dish.
Yes.
That I think is very thoughtful and intentional in how they
100%. It's like it shows the range of the creative power in this team that put it together, because the fact that it's all compelling, but they're all delivered so differently. Usually there's a flavor. This one, it can go any different way.
Yeah. And I don't know that I've ever seen another television show where from the jump, from the get-go, I'm immediately so invested in these characters and emotionally connected to them. That's like a magic trick.
Yeah.
So Christopher Storer, who created the show, has done an extraordinary job with this series. I can't wait to see what happens in season 3.
And Richie's kind of big moment at the end of Forks. There's a great cameo.
Yeah, we won't spoil that.
No, fantastic.
Yeah. One scene.
I mean, they're great together.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Is there anything that needs to be said about Barbenheimer?
Yes.
Or has it all been written and said, Adam?
Well, did you read about Nolan's reported deal?
No.
He gets 20% of first gross. That's quite a deal he made for himself. I think Oppenheimer's at 500 million, Barbie's at 1 billion. Collectively, Nolan and Gerwig have saved the in-theater movie experience, the relevancy of movies.
Do we feel bad for Tom Cruise?
No, you can't feel bad for Tom Cruise. He's had a pretty good life.
He's in the background, like gnashing his teeth, wondering how come he's not the lead story.
If he is, then I do feel bad for him.
I bet he is. He's so goddamn competitive, that guy.
No way. He's like now.
Well, I know he was pissed about the IMAX windowing because he wanted Mission Impossible to have kind of purview with the IMAX theaters. And that went to Oppenheimer. And Mission Impossible was amazing, but then once it was the Barbenheimer thing, like it was almost like we forgot that Mission Impossible happened and this guy rode his motorcycle off a mountain.
Yeah, he's probably off base jumping somewhere, so I'm not sure he's paying attention to us. But I will say this. I'm on his team when it comes to...
You don't think he's listening, Adam?
No. When it comes to why is Oppenheimer on IMAX, I'm 100% with Tom Cruise. Like, I watched it. I'm not saying it's not a good movie. I am wondering why...
Here comes the hot take.
I am wondering why a movie that is centered around business meetings is on IMAX. I just don't understand it. Like, the one visual was great. I legit don't understand why it had to be on IMAX. Explain it to me.
I respectfully disagree. I was at the very first screening of Oppenheimer at the Chinese theater Thursday at 5:00. I was in like the 4th row at the IMAX 70 millimeter experience. Now, let me tell you something. If you are at the very first screening of Oppenheimer at the Chinese theater at the IMAX 70 millimeter experience, this is a theater full of nerds. Like, this is the ultimate film nerd audience come to life.
Yes.
Right. And I could not have been happier or more thrilled to be there. Tyler and Trapper bought tickets for this was like the Father's Day gift. So I cut out of the studio early to make it over there to do. And it's like you're sitting down and everyone's, well, I'm going to watch it in 70 millimeter, but then tomorrow I'm going to go see it at the other theater so I can compare it. Like every film nerd talk.
Wow,
big time.
That's big time. That's big time.
But I can tell you that the tallness of the IMAX screen really changes the experience. And I think this film is a masterpiece, and I will never forget the experience of being in that theater to see it for the very first time. So I disagree with you. Okay. I think it's a tour de force of a movie.
Okay.
And I think it deserves to be seen in that format. And yes, there are a lot of white men talking in rooms.
A lot of meetings.
But who else could make that utterly riveting other than Christopher Nolan? I mean, he created a thriller out of like men having conversations.
A lot of meetings.
There's the Trinity test. That's exciting.
Yeah, that's great. But, I like that part.
Yes. I think...
Cillian, is it Cillian?
Killian.
Killian. Killian just looks at you. He's like, there's a lot of Killian looking at the camera.
Well, that performance.
Okay.
He's at a whole other level.
People are going to
now.
think that I'm just bad mouthing it. I'm not going to. Robert Downey Jr. is amazing. I think Emily Blunt is fantastic. You'll see them both get nominated. I think obviously Killian's going to get nominated. I love Matt Damon and everything he's in. So this is not me not liking it. I'm just going to say there was snoring in my theater. As many as nerds as were in your theater, there was audible snoring in my theater.
For the last hour?
Just
the controversial
periodic
hour?
snoring.
Interesting.
As you might expect in a long meeting.
Yeah. Interesting. I did. That was not my experience.
No.
I loved everything about it. I thought it was interesting. There's just unreal performances. The filmmaking is extraordinary. It gives us the meme we didn't know that we needed, that image of Benny Safdie lathering himself with sunscreen and putting on the goggles.
That was very funny.
That was the ultimate meme that you could throw up on the internet when you're, that trope of like, there's drama happening, I'm going to grab my popcorn.
Yeah.
This is now market corrected that.
Yes.
You can just put that image of Benny Safdie there, like, I'm getting ready to see the thing.
Yeah. And then Einstein, I loved him. Whoever played him, that was great. But one thing I didn't like that I wish was in it was, and it's hard to say I wish something more was in a 3-hour movie, but like the uranium came from Australia and had to come through on ships through the Pacific Theater. Like, to me, that's interesting. I would have liked to see like how that happened. Like you have to travel through the Pacific Theater from Australia in the middle of the war to beat the Nazis. I just felt like story-wise, there could have been ways to up the action and reduce the meetings. That's all.
Well, it was a lens into the mind of one man. Right. Like, Oppenheimer wasn't even in charge of the whole Manhattan Project.
Right.
He was just in charge of Los Alamos.
Right.
So it was a portrait of a tortured genius through the lens of Christopher Nolan, who perhaps he considers himself a tortured genius, with the message of like, shouldn't we just leave geniuses alone and let them be geniuses? Right?
Yes,
there's
true.
A little bit of that.
That's true.
How much of that is autobiographical? I don't know, but I think Nolan is very interesting.
Yes,
because he lives a true artist life. Like, he doesn't have a cell phone. He doesn't even have an email address. You can't email the guy.
But do you believe he doesn't have a cell phone? How's he listening to music?
I know. Well, he has. I'm sure he has a phalanx of assistants.
Okay.
Right, but he goes out of his way to not be influenced by the cacophony of culture and society and distraction. And I think there's something incredibly courageous and laudable about that in 2023, that he can be a guy without an email address who has his production. I think he bought the home next door to where he lives, and that's his production office. He works with his wife. And everything that he does is about creating credibility so that he can create outside the influence of the studio system. Obviously, he's partners, with the studio system to make his movies, but by delivering extraordinary movies under budget and on time, he has a lot more freedom, also due to the extraordinary success of his movies, to kind of not be bothered by stuff that other filmmakers would be bothered. And I think that is a very intentional career move that he's, doubled down on time and time again over the course of his career so that he can make these kinds of movies. And I think there's something really instructive about that lifestyle choice that in 2023 feels very anachronistic.
Yes.
But I think is also extremely wise and certainly crucial to his success.
If you can do it, I think there is something to be said about being off the main and having an artistic view and an objective view of how things are going, especially as a storyteller. I will say, you can't not respect him. Obviously, I have a great amount of respect for him, great amount of respect for Greta Gerwig and what they've done. But I will say, I don't believe everything a filmmaker, a guy whose whole point is to create an illusion. I don't believe everything they say about how they live their life when they're doing press for their movie.
Oh, he creates myths. So the myth of Christopher Nolan.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We won't know.
We could test that. Which brings me
I'm
to
going to email him right now.
I've extracted a few insights I wanted to share from this movie before we move on. And one of them is related to what you just said, which is there is the theory of how Christopher Nolan lives his life, but what is the practice, right? And this is the message of the movie, is it not, Adam? Theory can only take you so far.
Indeed.
Right? You have to put theory into action. Next, I also mentioned this one a minute ago. We should leave geniuses alone to be geniuses. This is the message of the movie. Right?
Then why do you keep emailing me and texting me?
I know. I got to stop bothering you, right? I needed to see this movie twice in order to really grok that, Adam. Also, being a lefty does not work well with the military-industrial complex.
Especially as far lefty as he was.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Don't mock powerful people in public hearings. It always comes back to bite you later. Maybe you were asleep during that part.
No, I stayed awake.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I wanted to see, I got to see, who else was in it?
Robert Downey Jr.?
No, the other guy.
Matt
who's in
Damon?
that scene. No, who's the other Oscar winner in that scene? Why am I?
Which scene?
Remy.
Oh, Remy Malek?
Yes.
Yeah, coming in for that one scene at the end. I found him to be distracting with his weird eyeball stuff. There's something very strange about that guy. He crushed that one speech, but in the scene earlier where he drops the clipboard, I was like, it took me out of the movie. I will give you that.
Bad first scene, great second scene.
How about this one? No matter what you think of the movie, Adam, we all know, if you know anything about Oppenheimer, that at some point he's got to drop the line, "Now I have become death, destroyer of worlds," right?
Yes.
This is what, if you don't know anything about Oppenheimer, that might be the one thing you know. Like, this is how he thought of what he had wrought on the world.
Well,
but you're thinking going into the movie, where is this going to happen?
Right.
When is he going to say it? Who's he going to say it to? Here's the creative choice. Let's do it while Florence Pugh is straddling him naked.
Yes.
And he utters the line. Now that, my friend, is a strong creative choice.
Reading Sanskrit and
that is a bold
love.
Choice
to
make as a filmmaker.
He was a real bohemian.
Yeah. Well, he was a ladies' man. My next point, right? Who knew? Who knew?
Certainly not me.
Those baby blues. I'm
not sure that she. Yeah, right. Who knew? He seems like he would sleep with anybody's wife that was at the dinner party.
There was a lot of that. I know. And where did it get him, Adam?
It got him married to Emily Blunt.
That's true. All of these relationships were fraught.
Well, that's the biggest public critique of the movie is you don't actually, even though you know that it affects him deeply and he feels like in some ways he's failed as a human being, you don't actually see the damage. And that was intentional. And Christopher Nolan has spoken about that, but that is something I'm still hearing about online.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Also, not notable for writing strong female characters.
Nolan?
Yeah.
Really? Is that right?
Yeah.
I thought Blunt was fabulous.
She was good, but they could have given her a little bit more to do. But it was nice to see her stand up. But her job was secondary in her support of him, of course.
Right, of course.
It's her story.
And that also speaks to the time a little bit too.
My final thing, and this bugs me more than anything, is that Nolan needs a new sound mixer. I don't know about you, but I find 70% of the dialogue inaudible in his movies. I had the same problem with Tenet. At first, I thought it was the theater or maybe sitting too close to the screen. But after a second viewing, I found it to be the same. There's a certain muffledness with the dialogue.
Right.
And his movies are so complex, and you need to really hear every single thing that everyone's saying just to not get passed by so you can be locked into the progression of the story. And he adds this extra layer of difficulty on top of it by making it difficult to understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I was just getting old, but this is the thing. Like, I noticed it in Tenet. I did some research on it. Like, a lot of people have been commenting on this. So I don't know why he does that, but maybe don't do it next time.
Yeah, don't do it.
But I love the movie.
The good news, though, he didn't make Meg 2, so you'll be able to hear everything that happens in Meg 2 real clear.
The dialogue will be very audible in that movie, I'm sure. All right, so you had mentioned that Christopher Nolan makes 20% of gross off the top, which means that...
I've read it. Who knows?
Assuming that's true, he's already made north of $100 million.
Yes.
So the question is, will he deploy that $100 million to buy a cell phone? Possibly, maybe not. We don't know.
Probably
You're
not.
so cynical. You believe he has a cell phone and he's lying the whole time.
No, I believe.
But he has created the myth of Christopher Nolan.
I'm saying there's
possible. But I will say, our friend Chris Evans over here didn't have a cell phone for a long time. Also, emails under an alias, and I think maybe the first time you emailed me under an alias, you said, "Well, this is actually me," blah blah blah, and then subsequently you emailed me but I'd forgotten the name that you were using or whatever. And I didn't know who this person was. And you were trying to communicate. What happened?
Yeah.
And I just blew it off.
Yeah.
Come here and tell that story.
Chris Evans, everybody.
He's back. See how I pulled him back in?
Christopher, no phone. You don't believe him.
Here's the thing. For me to believe that you're so analog that you're off the beat, you don't tell me you don't have an email address. What you say is, I only have an AOL email address. If you say I only have an AOL email address, then you're like someone's grandpa and you're really analog because you're really off the beat. But if you just say, I don't have an email address, that could be some bullshit.
So they say, Rich will know this, if you spot it, you got it. Yeah? Where's that from?
I don't know. From you.
Shakespeare.
From the rooms. Sometimes people say that.
Oh, that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you say some people come in here and they want you to think one thing about them or another thing about them. If you spot it, you got it, Adam.
Right. Well, basically,
I'm so open.
Yeah.
That is totally not me at all.
Another way of saying it, that is, you can't transmit something you haven't got, right? So if somebody is authentically sharing from their heart, right? Yeah. And if they're bullshitting you, if your radar is even slightly attuned, you can tell.
That's all I'm saying. And so my point is that I don't think most directors in a publicity scenario, this is not speaking about him personally, are going to be able to be revealing like that, because they want, especially a guy who wants to keep his kind of creative potion going. He would have a motivation to not. But if you're like just some writer guy on a podcast, I'm not faking it.
So you think one of the most creative geniuses of our time, yeah, has had to come up with this ruse of not having a phone to promote his amazing film.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for concisely making the point that I was struggling to pin him down on.
I retract.
Another mic drop.
I retract.
Another mic drop. You just walked off again.
I retract.
Yeah.
I retract. Retract.
Well
Retracted.
done. Good sir.
Wait, where are you going? Aren't you going to be here?
Yeah.
No.
I like how he dodged his own email alias question.
Yeah.
Also.
I still don't pay my own phone.
You don't. Yeah, that's like that's a rich man, poor man thing. Either you're so poor you don't pay it, or you're so rich someone else pays it.
No, there's a guy that we all know who was insistent that I had a phone, and I said I'm not going to get one, so he got me one, and he still pays the bill.
Maybe you can be that guy for Christopher Nolan, Adam.
Christopher, if you're listening, and I know you are,
you'll pay his cell phone bill for him.
I got your cell phone bill, and I'm sorry I said that thing about the snoring people. It's their fault. Something they were going through.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. I was there for the experience. I'm just saying there was a few too many meetings, maybe, and there was,
Now you're coming off weak with that back pedal. Like hold your ground.
You know what I mean.
All right. We just did a movie podcast. We're done. We're not going to talk about any of this other stuff. Let's do some listener questions.
Let's do it. This is from Matthew, who's calling all the way in from South Korea.
Hi, this is Matthew calling from South Korea. I just finished my 18th year of teaching as a middle and high school math teacher. I've taught in public and private schools in the United States and private international schools in Mexico and South Korea. As a teacher, I value teaching students to think, problem solve, understand why things work, and solving non-routine problems, while also items such as value in mental health, being good people, grit, and empathy. I have 3 education-related questions. Feel free to answer whichever you like, but I'm asking them in order of importance to me. My first question, leaving it fairly open-ended, what are your thoughts on secondary education system in the U.S.? It could be the status of American education, or what do you think are important skills or challenges that teachers and students should focus on? Second question, if you were giving a commencement speech, what would your message be? And third question, how would you apply James Clear's 1% rule for teachers that want to continue to improve their craft or potentially find new positions in education-related careers that may demand additional skills such as leadership that are typically absent from a day-to-day job for a teacher? Thank you.
Wow, a 3-parter from Matthew in South Korea. I think I'll tackle the first 2 parts. The third part, I'm not sure I have a worthy answer to. Maybe you do.
No, I don't know what what Clear's 1% rule is.
I think there's a lot to be said about secondary education, at least in the United States, as an outdated model that was shaped by the needs of the emerging capitalist trend that we've been on. Basically, what happened was the Industrial Revolution. And when that happened and gained momentum, industrialists required skilled and disciplined workers they needed a continual supply of these people to meet the demands of their growing industries. And the education system was like its feeder program. And it was really developed out of a need, a desire to cater to those industrialists by emphasizing or creating a curriculum that would create good workers, workers who could be punctual, obedient, efficient. And so the whole infrastructure of secondary education was oriented around, teaching people what they needed to know in order to be good factory workers, essentially. Mm-hmm. And here we are in 2023. Have we really changed this system? Not really, right? We're all walking around, I've said this before, with supercomputers in our pocket that can answer any fact-based question that you could possibly have. We now have all of these incredibly powerful LLMs that, take that even a step further. What the world is going to look like in 3 to 5 years, who knows? But certainly those tools are going to get refined and enhanced, which begs the question of what are we doing in the classroom, right? Should we be teaching people in a way where we're prioritizing the memorization of facts and the answering of rote questions that these computers can do for us? I think that the emphasis should be shifted to focus on some of the things that he already seems to be teaching in his classroom, maybe because he's in South Korea and not in the United States, where he would be much more restricted in what his curriculum looks like. But, I really think that education needs to evolve beyond the fact-based memorization paradigm that we've had for too many decades, and needs to focus on how about developing self-esteem? How about teaching leadership? How about helping young people learn how to tap into their creative voice and express themselves? How about team building? How do you build a team? How do you work within a team? How do you problem solve as an individual, but also as a member of a team, as a leader, or as just a member of a larger team? Like when you go out into the world, what's going to distinguish you from an AI or something that could supplant you in the workforce? It's your creativity. It's your ability to look at a problem and solve it with a perspective that is fresh and new. And, I think it's your ability to work with other people, to understand how to respect other people as well in the workforce, and with a level of self-esteem that is going to empower you to tackle difficult things and learn and grow in all the various ways that we need you to. So I don't know. It seems pretty evident to me. I don't know that I'm seeing a lot of that, and it doesn't seem to be a lot of evolution in the secondary educational system. And you have a young person who's coming up into that.
We're not there yet. Although he did take a Polaroid, self Polaroid selfie when we weren't looking yesterday, and it looked like I could see his teen self, his disaffected teen self, in this too close Polaroid of my cute little 3-year-old.
The navel gazing, sort of, like shut up, dad.
I can start to see him happening. I think what you're saying is well said. How do you get there from here? I don't even really know. I couldn't answer because I don't know the status of current secondary education because I don't have a child that's there. And it's been a while for me. You are shepherding people through school, and like you had two that just one that just went through it and one that is going through it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so you have a perfect lens on this. I will say that one thing I don't like is the politicization.
When we get older, it gets harder to say words like that.
Of everything.
Yeah.
And the fact that now parents are like having fights at school board meetings is appalling. And so that we had that in Temecula, we had that in Glendale here just in Southern California. And these fights are going, whatever the reason, I don't really care what the reason is. It's like, it shows me that anytime you give teachers latitude, it's going to be fought at some point on either side. And that's a problem, right? So for me, it's like, my thing is teachers should be paid more. They should be given more autonomy. We should take the emphasis off standardized testing, but we can't have the hegemony of the mob kind of dictate what is taught at a particular community. So all of those things are very complex, and there's people who know a lot more about them than me, but that's what concerns me about secondary education from someone who hasn't been in the teeth of it for a while.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so you're not into banning books.
No, I think all books should be available at all times.
Yeah.
All books.
I mean, I
you know,
think
like,
the
yeah.
system is set up to create people who are really good at taking tests.
Right.
That's what it rewards. It doesn't reward creativity or thinking outside the box. And I think those are skills that are becoming more and more valuable. And that needs to get priced in to this whole system. I don't know how you do that. I don't know the answer to that.
I mean,
but-
let's keep it real. Like for so long, our public education system was basically built on the fact that there was a glass ceiling in place and women couldn't really get high paying jobs in the corporate world. And so the place that high powered, really intelligent women could do well was as teachers in schools. And so that happened for generations. So that's why, you know, my mother was a teacher in school. She's like a brilliant woman. And there's a lot of teachers that are still brilliant now. This is not shitting on teachers. But what I'm saying is there was a built-in kind of funnel of talent to schools that now there isn't, because they have other choices.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we have to pay teachers more. I think, you know, given the condition of cities, we have to pay police officers. We have to pay people more so you get talent that is a top talent, so you can compete really and get people that can help us move in that direction.
Yeah, I agree with that. But at the same time, you could pay teachers a lot more, and obviously a great teacher can make a huge difference. But if they're stuck within the confines of a system that doesn't allow them to have any flexibility with the curriculum or the manner in which they teach, that's only going to go so far.
Agreed.
So it's a systemic problem as much as anything else. And then, you know, to the second question of the commencement speech, I just jotted down a couple thoughts, you know, on that note. I mean, I think in terms of ideas that I like to communicate to young people, first and foremost is to invest in your own creativity and not get caught up in the confined structures of the system that is trying to push you in a certain direction. Go to this school, go to that school, get this kind of job. You know, people who are very good at school, who are very good at taking tests, tend to also be rule followers, and they become very good at figuring out how to be upwardly mobile in that situation. I was one of those people. It was only in later years that I realized, like, why was I doing any of this? Because I hadn't paused to reflect upon what it was that I wanted to do or who I wanted to be. So I'm always impressing upon young people to engage with that process earlier in life than I did. And sometimes it's difficult because you are in a system that's telling you this is what's important, getting a good grade on this test or interviewing for this job. And it takes courage and a presence of mind to kind of pause for a moment and say, okay, yes, but also I need to do this for myself long term. So I think that's important. And that will help you entertain opportunities that are outside of your comfort zone. And those experiences, while you face obstacles and fail and fall on your face and have these experiences over time, will help you discover who you are and what's important to you. And in the meantime, I think it's important for young people to consciously give their energy to things that really light them up and excite them, irrespective of whatever external forces are telling you you should or you shouldn't do. Like, if something really means something to you and gets you excited and gives you energy when you get out of bed, that's something that you should fertilize and cultivate in your own life. It doesn't mean it has to be a job, but I think there's something in that that's communicating to you who you are, and it's important to give your attention to that. And sometimes that means breaking free of the expectations of other people. And those social strictures can be suffocating and very difficult to escape from. And I think developing an awareness around that and the extent to which those externalities are controlling your decision-making or unduly influencing the decisions you're making about what you're going to do with your life are really important to consider. I also, on a conservative note, think that it's important to learn discipline and the value of hard work and the value of $1. Like, there is a certain entitlement with some aspects of the younger generation where they think they should just waltz in somewhere and get a high-paid job and get to do what they want to do and work from home and basically go on expensive vacations whenever they feel like it. And, it's just not reality. So I think there's disabusing people of that notion and getting them connected to the idea that if you want to do something, no matter what it is, it's going to be difficult. And, kind of acclimating yourself to that earlier in life, I think is important as well. So experience life, say yes to adventure, accumulate experiences, and along the way, figure out you and then commit to being the best version of that authentic you. That is your mission.
I love that. Boom.
Part 3, I got nothing to say.
Oh, I was waiting for you to go on.
No, I got nothing.
I don't know what the 1%
He's been a
rule
teacher
is.
for 18 years. What can I tell this guy?
Yeah, why are we giving you teaching advice?
I don't know. Yeah, I know. It's
you should give us, how do we fix it?
Yeah, I know.
What's happening in Korea?
I don't know.
I appreciated that question. That was good. Anytime we could talk about the education system, I think is important. And let's move on to the next one.
Hey, Rich and Adam. My name is Zach. I'm 22 years old. I'm originally from Bethesda, Maryland, and right now I'm in the Army and I'm living in Korea. So my question was, how do you navigate pursuing challenges and embracing obstacles from a state of completion and, feeling like you're enough? So for a bit of context here, I've been really into Eastern philosophy lately. So I've been reading a lot of Alan Watts and practicing mindfulness meditation. But at the same time, sometimes it feels like the more I consume Eastern philosophy, while it encourages, a state of calm and clarity, it also seems to reduce ambition a little bit, along with, my desire to do hard things. So I was just curious how you guys approach this divide and, these different states of being. And, thank you guys for all the great work you do on the podcast. I'm a big fan. Thanks.
How about Zach dropping in with the ultimate, struggle of mankind, right?
The spiritual warrior
Being
incarnate.
versus doing. I mean, this is the shit, right? This is the whole ball game, is it not? Before we unpack that, though, I'm from Bethesda.
I think I knew you were I thought you were Silver Spring. You're Bethesda.
No, I grew up in Bethesda.
Okay.
And Zach being from the Army reminded me, sort of related. So when I was in high school, one of the jobs that I had was delivering pizza. And I delivered pizza for this pizza delivery company it was sort of like a Domino's thing, but it was just a family owned one shop thing. And it was called Postal Pizza, which is a terrible name because it's we're as slow as the mail. I don't get it.
But back then the mail was respected.
It was called Postal Pizza. This was the greatest job, though. I love this job because basically you just drive around and listen to music, and then you get to knock on people's doors and then look into their house and see how people live. When I was 17 or whatever, I thought it was great.
You were a Postmates
But
guy.
what was great about Postal Pizza was, this is 1987 or something.
Yes.
It was connected to a video rental store.
Okay.
So you could call up and you order your pizza, but you could also order a movie. So it would deliver the pizza and the VHS tape.
That's awesome.
Right? Which was pretty cool.
I've never heard of that before.
One time Ted Koppel walked in. That was the big moment.
Come on.
That summer. Ordered his pizza in person. But anyway.
How great was Ted Koppel's hair?
But here's the thing. How great is his what? His hair?
Yeah,
I know.
time.
Is it real? I think it's real.
I think it's real.
It's quite coiffed, is it not?
Yeah.
Anyway, a lot of the orders would come from the naval base, where NIH is, and what is it, Walter Reed? When the president goes to the hospital, wherever. So there's a naval base there. The fact that Zach's in the Army just reminded me of this. So 70% of the pizza orders were the enlisted guys at the naval base in Bethesda, which is weird because it's not on the water. I don't know what goes on at that naval base, but anyway, they order a lot of pizza. And they were not great tippers. That's my big takeaway. I don't remember that, but
yeah. Let's let it go.
Break.
Let's try to let it
Still
breathe that out.
Thinking about it.
Breathe it out.
Okay. Maybe Zach is a good tipper though. We don't know.
We don't know. It depends on
the more Alan Watts he listens to.
He's like, hey, bro, don't look at me like you need a tip. It doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter, bro.
What can we tell Zach about the tension between being and doing, Adam? I'm going to let you take a stab at this first. Yeah, I have some thoughts, but it's not like, hey man, should I go to college or not? This is the struggle of man.
Right. So when I first started to get into reading the Tao Te Ching, I felt like going with the flow was a kind of a path of least resistance thing. And so, yes, it was it's okay to be a little more passive and let the world have, flow with the world, which I guess you can be interpreted as as reduction of ambition, as in you're not trying to actively do something against the momentum that is just existing that you have to kind of merge with. But the more I read it now, I just see it as a different thing. I see it as how you're taming the mind, and that is separate from your goals and ambitions. And so how you train your mind and how you come to balance in your mind does not mean you're not doing hard things. It doesn't mean you don't have ambition in your life. It means like principles like humility, adaptability, perseverance, which to me are core. They're core in the Tao. They're core to mindfulness. Those things are really important to doing hard things. So the way I look at that is that when you're first reading into philosophy, it's easy to kind of get the hook. You get hooked by that passive, not passive. Passive not even the right word, but you get hooked by that kind of feeling of flow, because that's what hooks you, right? It's like, oh wow, that we are so small, and that we are in awe of how small we are and how beautiful and vast the world is, and the energy that's flowing all around us. And so we're in awe of that.
Then comes the terror.
But then you get into, or you're a householder, like now you're in a different place. Like when I was kind of a pebble getting kicked around the world doing the travel stuff, it's easy to stay in that small space. But when you're raising a family and you're being tugged on in a million directions, these kind of smaller but actually deeper realizations of just remain humble, remain adaptable, and persevere, which to me is everything. That's, I think, where you can click in to continue to have your ambition, continue to do those hard things. Just look at it at that next level, or maybe just look at, the way I do it is I don't read a whole book with the Tao Te Ching. I might read one verse every day for weeks until I'm kind of feel like I got one part of that lesson. So that's just that way I look at this particular question.
Yeah, well said. The idea that being or investing in a state of being brings a certain presence of mind and mindfulness to the doing, I think is what you're saying, right? I think when I said terror, what I meant by that is there is, the more that you invest in this journey of being, the more you realize the fractured illusion of identity, right? The attachments that you've made between what you do and who you are. So here we have a guy who's in the Army, who's in a very regimented situation, sort of dynamic for his life, in which there's a priority placed on doing hard things, overcoming obstacles in a certain way. And there's an association of masculinity and success that comes with that. And when you start going down the Alan Watts being rabbit hole, you start to deconstruct that identity. And that's scary, right? Who am I? Right? Like
the futility of it, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think this is kind of where, he finds himself right now.
Yes, I was reading that. Yeah.
This idea that, if I'm not, in the Army, or I'm not like climbing a wall or like tackling this difficult problem, then who am I?
Do I exist?
The more I kind of go down this rabbit hole, it's going to rob me of that ambition. And that ambition is what I associate with who I am. And when you start to pull the cover on that and realize, well, that's something you do, or it's an attachment you have to a certain sense of your identity that is not actually reality, that's a scary thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's threatening everything that you've constructed in your mind about who you are. So I think that's also this amazing opportunity, right? Like where you can realize that there's a greater depth and complexity to who you are, and a dynamism to who you are and how you show up in the world that is going to only expand your life, right? So I understand and appreciate the fear that gets associated with like, hey man, if I keep doing all this stuff, like I'm going to end up in a cave somewhere penniless and, all of that. I found all of those fears to actually be false for the very reasons that you said. Like the more, it basically provides you with a clarity that helps you discern what is worthy of your attention. And your attention is really all that you have, how you direct it, where you focus it. is, those are the most important decisions that you make, right? And the clarity that comes with being will allow you to discard or bypass expenditures of your time, energy, focus, and work that are moving away from the person that you're working towards or that you aspire to be. So it is the being that clarifies what is important and what is not, such that you can bring a presence and a mindfulness to the doing. The doing doesn't fade away or go away. You can still do hard things and, exactly the way that you described it, but you're doing it with a level of intentionality and an understanding that by placing your attention on this thing that aligns with your values, that that doing is worthy of the being that you're bringing to it.
And just to put a cap on it, like doing hard things, we talk about that as if it's a choice. I mean, the bottom line is we're all going to have to do hard things because it's life, right?
Yeah,
And
life is fucking hard.
Like hard things are coming. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's just the way it is. And I understand that. I get what you're saying. I think you nailed this. And I just want to say that the terror, it's like, reminds me of existentialism and kind of that you can hear in Bob Dylan and you read in Albert Camus, this existentialist terror that everything is futile and it doesn't matter what happens. But actually, that's the liberation.
Isn't that nihilism?
But that's the liberation of existentialism, right? It doesn't matter the outcome of A, B, or C, and if you feel that way, then that allows you to be free in the action of it, and therefore everything is liberated.
Right.
And so I feel like there's a parallel there in Eastern philosophy in terms of as you approach something like that you might have to do at work. It's like, yes, you're going to give it your all. If it doesn't go your way, you're going to keep giving it your all because that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go to Austin.
All right, Austin, Texas. Let's get out of Korea for once. All right. This is good. See, didn't you miss me? I knew you missed me.
I know.
Hi there. This is Brett Keenan. I'm from Austin, Texas, and I'm just sitting here doing the very mundane tasks and portion of my work, which I feel generally very excited by. I do experiential marketing and am a consultant for a business, and I really enjoy it. But in sort of doing my own business now, I'm just curious, like with all of the show that you've grown and just business in general, knowing that probably 80% of it is just these boring tasks that we have to get through and email and blah, blah, blah. Like, if you have any recommendations for how to make the boring parts more stimulating, any mindsets or mental reframes to feel more invigorated and get through the sort of not fun parts. So that's my question. I hope you all have a great day. Thanks.
I feel like Brett's question taps into the existentialism that you were just talking about a minute ago.
Yes.
Is there meaning? What is beyond here? How are we going to, find, some kind of purpose beyond the mundanity? And I think layered into this question is perhaps a less than fully mature appreciation for the fact that life is not just about leaping from one peak experience to the next, but that in truth, everything worthy of pursuing or doing or building or growing or working towards involves a lot of fucking boring shit, and you got to just, like Goggins would say, embrace the suck, right? You got to suit up and just do the boring shit. Like, whether it's business, especially in social media, you go online and it's just post after post about, success story and overnight venture capital funding and product launches and all kinds of sexy, exciting stuff. But behind the scenes of anything successful, whether it's a business or a podcast or as an athlete or an author or any creative endeavor, there's just a lot of really hard, unsexy shit that doesn't travel on the internet, but is the underlying truth in the recipe of achieving anything worthwhile in the world, right? So rather than trying to turn those boring tasks into just another peak experience. I think it's reframing it and understanding that this is just part of the journey that you're on in the process of trying to build something for yourself. And there's kind of a powerful lesson about life in that. And it's back to your attention, right? All you have is your attention. How are you directing that attention? And what is the kind of default predisposition that you're bringing that attention that is kind of packed onto or attached to that attention when you have to do boring shit like answer emails, right?
Yeah.
Can you reframe it and say, well, this is something that I have to do. And every person who's trying to build something similar to what I'm trying to build has to do it as well. So can I find gratitude in it? Can I figure out that this is just a piece in a greater journey and that it's serving an important purpose, as mundane as it is? Like, there's no getting around it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you brought up David, and it's so funny, like how, like months after this book has come out, after working, like I find myself like thinking like David more now than maybe after at all in my whole life after having done these 2 books. And I feel like, I don't know for a fact that this is how he would react, but I think what he would say and how he would feel about this is, this boring shit is your opportunity to separate yourself from everybody else doing your job. This boring shit right here is why everybody else comes in second or third or fifth or eighth, because this boring shit just bothers them to the point where they just get half-ass it and give themselves permission to quit. This boring shit is your ticket to be the best there is in your business.
I'm not going to top that. So that's a good play. That's another mic drop.
I got
courtesy
one.
of Goggins, right?
Yeah.
2 for Chris, 1 for Adam, and that's a wrap. Awesome. Thank you, Chris Evans, for joining us today. As begrudging as you were, it was beautiful to have you. I appreciate you. I love you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks,
and
man.
Adam, good to be back with you, man.
Thanks for
Maybe
having
we
me.
should we do this more often?
I'm literally
I don't know.
always available. Literally.
I will take that to heart. We'll be back when we're back. In the meantime, I do not take your attention for granted. I really appreciate everybody who has listened all the way through to the end of the day.
Yeah.
All the way. You made it. Congratulations.
Well, you started out
Yeah.
thanking the listeners. Yeah. I thank you for having me back, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Thank you, Chris, for your advice and your optimism. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. That's it. Peace. Plants.